Good morning. Delighted to have you all here to America's Future Series National Security Pitch Day. My name is Scott Murray. To my right, David Hamilton, the founder of the America's Future Series. He is presently the CEO as well, and we're delighted to welcome each and every one of you, wherever you might be in this great land that we all call home. Delighted to have you here as we move on with this National Security Pitch Day presentation. We had some issues about 30 minutes ago during the course of the last 30 minutes or thereabouts when we started a little prematurely to add a little extra to the program this morning. Unfortunately, whether it was too early for some, we had some technical difficulties from some of the people that were trying to call in. We're not sure what happened. We were waiting for them, but they said at their end they had some issues that they couldn't get out. So we certainly understand, but we apologize for the faux pas, as they say. So we're really sorry that we didn't get to hear from them because of the technical problems that we're having on their end, as they say. So hopefully during the day we can tune in with them, and maybe we can get them hooked up a little later on this afternoon. But in the meantime, we welcome you all. Delighted to have you here. And my first order of business is to introduce to you the Honorable Patrick J. Murphy. Let me give you a little something about this gentleman and all that he has done in his incredible life. Even as a teenager, at the age of 19, he joined the Army, launching a lifelong commitment to our nation's military and veterans. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for your incredible service. Patrick has served as a soldier, America's first Iraq War veteran elected to Congress, and I might add, the 32nd Undersecretary of the Army. Today, Secretary Patrick continues to advocate and empower veterans through his work in the public and private sectors. As a veteranpreneur, he spearheads a wide range of business interests and offers veterans the opportunity to launch their own dreams by investing in their own companies. Great concept. And as a public speaker and media executive, he helps amplify the voices and experiences of veterans on MSNBC, CBS, the Discovery Network, and elsewhere. The list goes on and on. So, Secretary Patrick, a giant welcome to you, sir. Again, we thank you for your service. I'm Scott Murray. David Hamilton, welcome to the America's Future Series National Security Pitch Day.
Scott, David, it's great to be with you. Thank you so much. And we're so excited to lead off with Colonel Nathan Diller. I believe you all are going to give the intro to him, but just what a great American and what a perfect person to run AFworks. Excited about this conversation, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Great. So I think we've got a little bio on the Colonel. Colonel, I want to say thank you. AFworks is doing amazing work. You are really seen as the gold standard in innovation, et cetera, of all the military forces. The programs you put on are outstanding. And I want to thank you personally for having supported our events in the past with your presence. It's really important that people hear what you have to say and how the business community can be in support of your mission. So I just want to say personally, thank you.
Super, thank you.
All right, Colonel Diller, let's get cracking here. You have an incredible background. I mean, we don't hold it against you that you couldn't get into West Point. I'm the Distinguished Chair of Innovation at West Point, and that you had to settle for the Air Force Academy. You graduated there in 2000. So, geez, 21 years ago this May. But then you went on to get a master's degree from both MIT and Harvard. 2 combat deployments, missions. Thank you so much, for your service. But walk us through for those who aren't familiar with it, what is AFworks and how do you partner with the industrial base and entrepreneurs?
Absolutely. So thank you all for the opportunity to be here. Secretary Murphy, thank you very much for all of your service and leadership. So for AFworks, we did a pretty notable relaunch last summer. And AFworks, it started to get a brand that was, how do we reach out across our airmen? How do we touch industry? And so we had a multitude of different experiments in this space where we're finding new ways of engaging with industry. As we did that, we started to realize, how do we make sure that these are capabilities that endure? How do we make sure that this is not just a prototype? And how do we ensure that we can bring this forward into really something that's institutionalized? If you really want institutionalization of innovation, which kind of conflicting notions there. So from that perspective, we went and we relaunched AFworks. And as we did that, fundamentally what we are looking to do, we see the current competition, the competition with our adversaries, one that is going to require a whole of nation approach. And so from that perspective, how do we as AFworks become partners that we can, and I've got a little helper here that suddenly showed up. How do we create the right partnership with industry so that we're bringing in, if you see a world where 80% of research and development is happening in the commercial sector, it's not just a great thing for industry. It's not a great thing for the Air Force, the Department of the Air Force, or Army and Guardians. It is, we believe, really, this is an imperative that we reach out and find a way of getting this entire team together from American innovation. One thing that you're going to see from AFworks this year is a lot more opportunity in partner engagement. And when we look at dual use technologies, the opportunities for going and in opening up a broader set of partnerships internationally, we see as a phenomenal chance there. So fundamentally, it's about partnership. It's about building breadth across technology engagement, across engagement with our talent, and across fundamentally the transition that gets to our warfighter, but does it in a way that both builds security and prosperity for our nation.
That's great. Well, I appreciate that you talk about a whole of nation approach. A lot of folks say, well, national security, that's a whole of government approach. It is a whole of nation approach because it's imperative that we have these public-private partnerships. The government can't do it alone. And whether it's, working with big primes, such as Lockheed Martin, BAE Systems, et cetera, or really getting that entrepreneurial juices, with small businesses. If I'm a small business and I'm an entrepreneur and I come to you, how does it work? How do I penetrate? How do I have a relationship with AFworks?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've slowly started building this out. We want to be that front door that is available to industry. We want to also make sure, and we've done great partnership, particularly with DIU. We've started to build that out with the other services, so that it's not just the Air Force, but how do we start doing some of the data sharing when companies are interested in doing that? And so we've used the first tool that we have. As you're aware, one of our biggest challenges is creating some budget certainty. Is there a budget out there that we can build a strategy off of? Fortunately, there is a consistent budget that's there, and that is the SBIR budget. The other thing that's interesting about that is small businesses. That's where phenomenal innovation is happening. We're looking at opportunities to expand that out. Clearly, the fantastic technologies that we have in our Department of Defense today, created by many of the defense primes, and we are looking at opportunities to create better partnerships. The first partnership that has been with small business, it is applying for 3 times a year. You can go to afworks.af.mil and learn about our small business innovation research, our small business technology transfer. We do that 3 times a year. We do it with an open topic that says, here's things that we're interested in, but we're also, we know that we don't necessarily have all the ideas. We know that there are ideas out there that folks may have, recognizing that there is a defense application. We are open in that open topic, creating the opportunity to bring those ideas forward.
Well, look, today is, this part of this American Future Series, and today's National Security Pitch Day. So what is your advice to entrepreneurs that go in front of you and say, hey, I want to partner with AFworks? What are you looking for in the small business for these innovation research grants?
Absolutely. So we're looking across the spectrum of technologies, but fundamentally, our Secretary of the Air Force recently designated the director of AFworks as the Chief Commercialization Officer. And it is really, we love the research and development, but we want to make sure that we are creating a path to move that research and development forward. It could be, early research and development, lower TRL, 6162. What is that path? When we are making our assessment of these technologies, we look at 3 things. We look, is there a path to commercialization? So is there a demand signal that's out there, and can we partner with someone in that demand signal, right? And so this is the reason I spend a good amount of my time talking with investors. The next is looking to see, is there technical rigor? This is one that's typically pretty easy, but in general, making sure that we have our now entire 6,000 person Air Force Research Laboratory assessing that technical. And then the last piece, fundamentally, is there military utility? If we're involved in somehow or another, our intent is that we're providing capability for our warfighter, ideally doing it at an affordable cost for our taxpayers. Those are the criteria that we look at because we are in this space of dual use.
I'm excied about these entrepreneurs today that are doing the National Pitch Day for national security, because, you look at historically, some of the most global iconic brands were started by American veterans, whether it was Sam Walton come back from World War II, starting Walmart, Bill Bowerman and Phil Knight come back from World War II, Bill Bowerman earned a Silver Star, over in Europe and started Nike, the largest sports apparel company in the world. Ralph Roberts starting Comcast. So when you look at almost 49% of those World War II veterans of the 60 million came back and worked or started their own small business. But of our generation of Iraq, Afghanistan veterans, it's less than 5% that started. Part of that is access to capital. And that's what, you really help do, by doing phase 1, phase 2, et cetera. But, in this space, someone who's invested through Stony Lundstrom Group and started businesses, of the valley of death. Can you walk folks through that and why it's so hard for entrepreneurs, especially in that security space, to succeed?
Absolutely. So one of the things we're trying to do, part of the reason is because we'll start with someone will go see a shiny technology and say, that's fantastic. That's a really interesting technology. What we're trying to do is, as I mentioned, with those 3 criteria of technology, great, but commercialization and that warfighter demand, if we put that at the beginning, so we create this team internal to the government. That team includes our acquisition team, it includes our warfighting team, and it includes our tech team. If we bring that team together at the beginning, we feel highly confident that when we send out that first phase 1, right, could be $50,000, $100,000, the phase 2 eventually then going to, a low $1 million bet. Now these opportunities with our strap buys we've taken companies from a $50,000 contract to a $45 million contract with several companies in just the course of a year. So our ability to use this tool, this consistent capital provided through the Small Business Innovation Research Program, allows that quick gap to fill. As you're aware, that 2-year budget gap is a huge challenge. As we do that, we're able to actually get hardware in the hands of the warfighter, and you're going to see that with, beyond those phase 1s, phase 2s, clearly a phase 3, this prime program with Agility Prime of actually now taking in the course of a year, we've gone from the launch of Agility Prime that happened last April. We now have 3 of those aircraft through airworthiness. They are flying under government direction, looking at military utility in just the course of that year, and now on a path to field that capability. We believe that it's creating a model that allows us to scale, that allows us to work strategic initiatives from what are the strategic industries that are out there in emerging tech. 2, as we're doing that, how do we use that as a way of improving our processes, high bar to go take the treasure of the taxpayer and give it to a warfighter capability. And we have many checks on that. How can we use 21st techniques to accelerate those multiple hurdles that are necessary to ensure we're keeping trust with the taxpayer? And then the third is we really want the capability. So as we look at those 3 criteria, we feel like with our future prime programs, we really have a path to scale, and it's done right from the outset with those phase 1s of how we're doing the evaluation, that it's not just, hey, this is interesting, Tyre. We're looking across a spectrum of different criteria there.
It's interesting, I mentioned in the front, you graduated over 2 decades ago from the Air Force Academy. I was 96-year group, so I was a lieutenant, when you were a cadet, and that was before 9/11. That was before the war on terror. That was before our nation was attacked on 9/11. So in those 2 decades, we have seen, deploying in places like myself, like in Baghdad, Iraq, where, in a sense, we're fighting folks, in tennis shoes and AK-47s, who are putting roadside bombs down. To now, seeing the aggression in the Pacific and countering that. We see what's going on in northwestern China. We see that there's about 1 million Chinese that are in internment camps that are unfortunately going through forced sterilizations and not allowing them to practice their religious beliefs. Most of them are Muslim. And you see what's going on in the South China Sea and other signs of aggression. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin has said that 2 of his top 3 priorities are: 1, investments to deter the Pacific aggression, and 2, accelerate autonomous, remotely controlled systems. Are you seeing more folks pivot to make sure they're addressing these national, international challenges, even at the small business level?
Absolutely, and I think that's the part that's so exciting. I spent 2 years on the Joint Staff as Air and Space Branch Chief, getting, unfortunately, to see some of our top defense leaders at the head of the table with a lot of concern on their face, saying how do we get ourselves in this situation? What do we do to start to address this? And this is where I'm really excited about the type of work that we're doing with AFworks, because it's not these solutions in many cases aren't going to be entirely found in the commercial sector, but there's so many enablers. And you talk about autonomy, and you look at the things that are happening. A report that came out just this last week talking about how autonomous cars, the safety that is being augmented by autonomous cars. These are things, and there's no lack of literature that talks about the different optionality that you buy yourself in the war field with autonomy. We've got fantastic programs that have been existing. You're seeing success of the Skyboard program. We work very closely with that team. We are looking in the very near term under one of our future primes, autonomous prime, where we can go take some of our platforms that we've looked at from an agility prime perspective. How do we use those as platforms for testing, not just the technology, but also testing the trust that we have in these autonomous systems? And so that really is the speed that we're moving forward. To some degree, it's not just, that's the technology in many cases we feel is at much higher readiness levels. What is it that we do to create that trust? And that's where we feel like we have a strong value proposition to bring these things forward, to be able to bring them to austere locations, do a very high level of testing with our professionals, and then being able to bring that forward both to the battlefield, as well as if you look at the potential gains in GDP from our nation being able to harness these different approaches to autonomy, it's profound. As I mentioned, just on the automobile side on the ground, the safety and security, that's a partnership. Again, this must be a whole nation effort. And from an AFworks perspective, that engagement with industry, that engagement with our fresh airmen, our fresh guardians as part of the Space Force, that is the key. That's the type of team that is necessary to counter that aggression and ensure that we have the technical dominance to keep our open society free and safe for democracy and freedom.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I appreciate when you talk about dual use. Where there's use in both the private and the public sector. I mean, people understand there's Tesla vehicles. There's even Domino's Pizza right now is delivering pizzas autonomously, through vehicles that don't have people in them, and they just show up. So it's out there right now, even in our own country. But when you look at autonomous, systems and making sure that we have everything we can, you look at things like swarm drones and some other things that are actually in play right now and have been in play on offensive operations with other countries using them in places like Saudi Arabia, as we know, with the oil field there just a short time ago. What are you seeing when people get concerned and they get in their mind, oh my gosh, this is like the movie Terminator, where it's all machine versus machine, that there's no human capability, there's no character, there's no folks saying, stop, that's not the right thing to do. What control measures or what do you see as challenges, whether it's ethically or what you're seeing technically from your perch at AFworks?
Sure, absolutely. So, unfortunately, there are some brilliant folks thinking about kind of these broader ethics, these broader policy issues. We, when we're doing the tech development, are staying very closely tied in from an interagency perspective. Across the joint, we have an international study that's being done on manned and unmanned teaming. I flew F-16s. That was an electric jet. I think one of the things we have to remember is, there's always technology that can do horrific things, and that is the reason having that human, right? There is a human that must be on that loop, potentially in that loop. The value, though, is or the potential opportunity cost if we don't go that path. The F-16, instantly will pull 9Gs. Many F-16 pilots have lost their lives from doing that. Recently, if you would have told a pilot, you want to have an airplane fly you autonomously, well, right, I'm a fighter pilot. That's not the way I want to do business. If I am unconscious because of G-induced loss of consciousness and I'm going down, high likelihood that I would want that autonomy. So our Air Force Research Laboratory, our acquisition enterprise brought that into the F-16, already saved over 10 lives in doing that. That's just one of many places that autonomy has so many different ways of improving the safety and the security of what we're doing. We are, as a nation, an open nation, that has these values, we are going to monitor it completely and thoroughly, making sure that we understand what are the left and right limits. The sooner we start testing that, the sooner we start understanding that, the close relationship that we maintain with academia, with policy, with the interagency, that's not going away. And we, as a nation with these values, have to be a leader with our partners to bring that forward and do it in a responsible way. And there's ongoing dialogue. I think that's very healthy. That's the technologists moving forward with the philosophers and the ethics. You know, chance to study a lot of just war theory when I was at Harvard and under Secretary Carter when he was there. And it's been a relationship that we've kept. It's what's made our country where we are today. We've moved in a path where we're using precision to save lives, not to increase the number of lives lost. It will be the same, I believe, with this technology, with the type of leadership that we have.
Yeah, I have time for one last question, if that's okay, Colonel. As you see these folks today in the National Security Pitch Day, these young entrepreneurs that are running these small businesses that are trying to partner with the federal government and with our military, and specifically from your perch with AFworks, there's always concern about cybersecurity. We understand about this, our competitors, China, North Korea, Iran, Russia, where they attack not just the Pentagon, not just Department of Defense, but the private sector. Even in fact, there was cybercrime that resulted in a loss of life in a hospital in Great Britain. I bring that up because, the federal government now, as you know, I'm a commissioner on a U.S. Cyberspace Clearance Commission with U.S. senators, the Deputy Secretary of Defense, and others. But in that, we are looking and we're pushing for cyber hygiene, not just in the federal government, but as you mentioned, that whole of nation approach. So things such as different standards within the CMMC and what small businesses need to do. What advice do you give to entrepreneurs out there to make sure they're doing what's necessary to protect their intellectual property, to make sure their systems and their teams are safe and secure and doing the proper hygiene?
Absolutely. So listen, this is a risk that's not going away anytime soon. What I can say is the Department of Defense, I had the opportunity to work on some of these cyber matters, right, touching critical infrastructure, things like software security, and establishing that hygiene from the outset. What we've done in the Agility Crime Program, for example, is working with small businesses on a process we call STPA to look at architecture from the outset and making sure that we're designing that architecture from the outset for security. This is where I think there's just a phenomenal, again, this is an opportunity where you look at teaming. When I look into a future where I've got autonomous vehicles, there's a high likelihood that the microelectronics on that ground vehicle, right, on our cars that we're driving, potentially needs to be a level of security, potentially a level of anti-tamper, from a hardware assurance with software assurance that's comparable to what I would want in one of my weapon systems that we're flying in the national defense. How do we as a nation go create a partnership across our auto manufacturers, across our avionics and our aircraft, across our weapon systems that say we have to establish a way of building microelectronics in this nation, and from a hardware perspective, from a safety and security perspective, because this goes back to that dual use. So many of these things flow back and forth across. It could be as big of a threat to our critical infrastructure as it is to our weapon systems. And this is the reason I think this partnership with the model that we're establishing here in AFworks, and that I think you're seeing grow across the Department of Defense, is so critical as we move forward, because we have to have that economic engine to go create this hardware and this software and do it in a place where we have trusted capital, where we have trusted supply chains, so that we are creating security for our nation very broadly. That it's not just our warfighters, but it is when you look at the literature coming out and the approaches that our adversaries are looking at, it is unrestricted warfare that is the concern out there. Again, a further impetus, this is a whole of nation approach.
Well, Colonel Diller, thank you so much. We appreciate it. And especially when you talk about America, as when you look at the symbol of America, which is the eagle behind me, where it has two talons, one talon with 13 arrows signifying our military might, the other talon showing our diplomatic ability, and frankly, our economic strength. So we have the #1 economy in the world, the #1 military in the world. but we have competitors, and it's not near peer. They are peer competitors. When you look at, we have 330 million Americans. They have 1.2 billion folks in China. So when you see that, we understand that we have to have that underdog mentality. So your partnership with young entrepreneurs, folks that are really trying to get after it, I think is critical, especially during this time. You are truly at the tip of the spear. So Colonel Diller, thank you so much for what you do at AFworks. We're looking forward to an exciting day here at National Security Pitch Day with American Future Series, and we hope to see you soon.
Thanks so much, Secretary Murphy. I appreciate it. Goodbye.